Oh, who's that? You're muted, Bets.
No, I'm not.
Exactly.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, Auntie
I
Bet.
like your necklace.
It's
So
Em.
cute.
Hey, you're not supposed to be looking at
Peekaboo. Peekaboo.
Peekaboo is the best. Yeah. So, I mean, people are taking a break, but whenever you're ready, I see 77 people are on right now.
What time are we starting?
Well, I
7 minutes ago.
yeah, I didn't schedule.
I started already?
Yeah, so we can just, I mean, if people want to start asking questions.
Can I ask a question?
There's actually one question already being asked by Pablo.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. So what schools still hold the mind-only view nowadays? That's a very interesting question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
We could ask Mr. Wu or Stanley even, or might even have an idea, because in China, I think is the only place where it really stuck around for a while and influences modern thought more.
Yeah, I know from the experience of having been there and the kinds of questions people ask about the higher middle way view, it seems like that there's a lot of existing ideas that come from the mind-only school. But whether that's like a school of philosophy, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Chan school, like the Han Chinese Buddhist group, is heavily influenced by mind-only philosophy.
Okay, sorry, I don't know. So, I mean, there's going to be like a gazillion questions I can't answer. And remember that there's an opportunity to ask questions of Geshe Michael on, I think it's June 3rd or something like that.
June 2nd.
June 2nd. Okay, Sugong.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I just thought that it would be great if you can summarize your different summarize simply the meditations in your book, according to different schools.
Oh gosh, no, I cannot do that simply. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. I see. It's not that simple, huh? It can be like one.
Well, I mean, there's so many ways to cut it. You can, I mean, there's different ideas, the different philosophical schools, and there's different logical statements that are used to refute them, and so different meditations that you would do.
Okay.
I mean, are you meaning like diamond sliver and?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, just the main distinction, according to this school, according to the Abhidhamma, it's basically the cause and effect. According to the sutras, I mean, just I don't know. I mean, if it's possible, if not, then it's okay. No, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't answer that.
Okay,
I'm really sorry. I am, people say I'm intelligent, but I'm really not. So people can ask me really simple questions. I'm happy to answer. Difficult ones, I'm really not qualified.
Okay, thank you. Anyway,
sorry.
No worry.
And now everyone can leave. Yeah, so I don't know what schools still hold the mind-only view nowadays.
There's a couple more questions on the chat here. They look like pretty interesting.
Oh, I see.
One from Arena and one from me.
Okay, so Arena asks, what is the difference between illusion and gotcha? So gotcha in particular, which is, it means the thing that we deny. It is a specific thing. It's a thing that does not exist, never did exist, never could exist, never will exist. It's an impossible thing. And it's the thing that we focus on when we're meditating on emptiness. I mean, that is the emptiness that we see, is the absence of the gotcha, the impossible thing, the thing that could exist self-existently from its own side. And illusion, I don't, I mean, could you talk more? I mean, do you mind speaking, Irina, and talk about what you mean by illusion?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, well, in ACI 12, there is the definition of what illusion is, and it's basically the way Geshe-la spoke about it, is that it is something that doesn't exist, and it's something that we thought was there, but it's not there. So it's just seemed to me that it was very similar to gotcha, and I mean, I know there's a difference, but I wouldn't, like, I'm not sure how to define it properly.
Okay, so you said ACI 12
Yes.
is your reference? Okay, let me look. Because I don't want to try and address it without seeing it, if that's okay. So I'm searching. Oops, sorry. So you're talking about in reading 3, contemplation 13, how do we see the illusion?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, let's see. So these are contemplations, just to sort of set the stage. This is course 12 of ACI, is the third part of a commentary on Master Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara. It's a Sanskrit word which means guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. And this commentary is by Gyaltsab Je. So Gyaltsab Je is saying, okay, this contemplation is important for understanding what Master Shantideva is speaking about. And in this third part, we're now in the chapter of wisdom in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which is a very challenging chapter, by the way. Okay. So we are here talking about, this is actually, this is interesting. This is a refutation of the position of the mind-only school. If there is no object at all that has any nature of its own, then the mistaken state of mind which perceives the illusion cannot exist either. If this were so, then there would be no state of mind that could ever take the illusion as its object. And if this were the case, then the illusion itself could not exist either. And then he says that this is another version of the idea that if something exists, it must have a nature of its own. So this illusion, I think that they're speaking about here, as I was reading ahead a little bit. So the mind-only school, in their way of talking about the mistakes that the mind makes, one of the main mistakes is that when we experience things, we perceive things, we experience them as being outer objects, that it is some object that is outside of our body-mind complex, right? But they say the big mistake there is that everything you experience is coming out of the kunshi, out of your foundation consciousness. So that's the illusion they're talking about, this illusion that you're looking at your mind, but the illusion is that it's some external object. So for them, that is the gotcha, because that's part of the way they define that. Does that help? So it's
Yes.
not like gotcha for everybody. That illusion, that particular illusion, is not a gotcha for every philosophical school.
Yeah.
Like the higher middle way school would say, oh yeah, you know, it appears as an outer object because you have the seeds to have it appear as an outer object. So that's how it ripens. Doesn't mean it's self-existent.
Yeah, but isn't it also something that we deny?
An outer object?
Yeah, that exists like basically self-existently, and that's an illusion.
Well, see, where we have to be clear is in how the different schools define self-existence. So in what Gyaltsab is talking about in ACI course 12 there is the illusion as defined by the mind-only school. The illusion that what appears to be an outside object, but is truly your foundation consciousness.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. So, and then the word gotcha in more general means the object we deny. So the object we deny, the actual one, is defined differently for each philosophical school. And that's what, I mean, Chandi Lama in the book that I'm translating goes through and talks about for each of the schools what the gotcha is and how you have to know the highest gotcha if you want to see emptiness directly and get out of the wheel of suffering. Right? So each school has their own idea, and according to the highest middle way school, you know, those ideas may be helpful along the way, but they're not the one that's going to get you out of suffering. So this
Yeah.
idea of the mind-only school that, you know, one of the big things that's going to get you out is if you see that illusion of an external object doesn't exist, you know, that's your ticket. Middle way
Yeah.
schools would say, no, that's not it.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure. So, let's see. So there was a follow-up question, I think, from Mei Wan Lim, or a statement. I think illusion is the view that we hold on to, i.e. we think it exists in this way, but actually it is another way. So I think in general, you can say that about illusory things. They, you hold them to be something that they're not. Yeah, but in this particular case, in ACI 12, it was very specific in relation to the mind-only school and external objects.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If there's
Carl,
no more questions, I have one
Carl, did
question.
I answer your question about the gotcha? Or was it a question? Carl, Tobias, Larna Mark, sorry, my type is so small. Gotcha is the wrong view of things as self-existing. Okay. Seiji.
Yes. So it was the same question that we were discussing before the start of these afternoon classes. If you can tell us the difference. This was in Ben's text, and we're talking about two types of emptinesses. One is the emptiness of being independent in the sense of being self-standing, and the other one, emptiness of having its own nature. I want to see if you can explain what the difference are and in which schools each of these fall into.
Okay, so it again, this is another, like, to me, it seems like another example of use of a general term, the lack of a self nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which all the schools say that there is a lack of a self nature. It's just that the schools don't agree on what that means exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the lack of a self that could be substantial in the sense of being self-standing is held by all the schools except for the higher middle way.
Because
Well, the higher middle way would say that, you know, the lack of a self nature means a thing that could exist outside of Mingdra, outside of name and image,
mm-hmm.
right? But let me open up that text that Ben's text that we just did today, because I was taking notes at that point. My computer's fighting me a little because I have 3 million things at least open. Okay, let's see. That was towards the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, I put the relevant part on the chat.
Oh, I wanted to look at my notes. Oh, but you
Uh-huh.
have the text.
I mean, no, I just put my notes.
Oh, I see.
It might be wrong, but this is what I
No,
understood.
no.
To me, they both seem like the same thing. That's why I was interested to know what the difference is. When he was
So
talking
I
about,
mean, I just like one of my notes said that when Geshe Michael said Zeye has like 20 different meanings depending on what school you're in, and Chankya's very in-depth text about comparing all of schools, he said that has a great discussion about it. He did say that that's just the rough lack of a self nature to a person, according to, I think he's saying higher middle way. I just must admit that this phrase, substantial in the sense of self-standing and how the different schools view it, is something that I don't grok. I
and
don't see the subtle distinctions.
is it different that having something not having its own nature?
I'll say that again, Seiji.
Well, is there a difference between substantials in the sense of not being self-standing and something not having its own nature?
Substantial in the sense of being self-standing, that would be the gotcha.
Right. Sorry, the other not being substantial in the sense of not being self-standing. Would that be different than not having its own nature, or is the same? Like
Well, again, I think it would depend on which school. So I think the two lower schools would say, yeah, maybe. Maybe both of the two lower schools would say, yeah, in some sense. I mean, there's just these distinctions about subtle and gross lacks of a self nature.
Yeah.
But mind only certainly wouldn't agree, and lower middle way certainly wouldn't agree, right? Because their ideas of what the gotcha is go far beyond substantial in the sense of self-standing, right? They agree that that's an emptiness. It's not the one that's gonna get you out.
Okay. Does this relate to like some schools calling it more like a no self and the higher ones emptiness, or it has nothing to do with that?
I think there was a part in my text, if I recall correctly, that says that it's not that they don't agree with tongpanyi, emptiness. It's just that they don't use that phrase.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
the difference is mainly in words, not so much in the concept.
So they will use the word dak mei,
Mhm.
you know, a lack of a self nature.
Mhm.
But again, how they define what dak mei is,
Mhm.
what tongpani is, that's all different depending on which school you're talking about.
Right,
There's
right.
no one definition.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So that's what I mean. It's like, especially when you think about Adam's text today, when it was saying that, you know, a word has to have, you know, a definition that doesn't fit any other word. I don't know. This seems like I wish Adam were here. Like, how would that fit? If emptiness can mean so many different things. There are so many different existing definitions of emptiness.
Right. So it'd have to be defining different. Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Maybe we can
Yeah.
ask Geshe. I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to formulate this question.
I know, I really have to think about how to phrase it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you very much.
Oh, I hope that was somewhat helpful.
It gets me closer, yes.
Okay, that's kind. Any other questions I can attempt to
Did you see
discuss?
there were a couple questions in the chat, and I mean in the Q&A in Chinese?
Well, yeah, they're in Chinese.
Did anybody, is anybody available to translate them here?
They are translated by Isabel already. This is basically from Vivian, and I attempted to answer also. So
Do you
Oh,
want to,
okay.
do you want to translate it for Upala?
no, it
Oh,
has
that's
been
all right. No.
translated already. It has been
Oh, you can
translated.
just go ahead, take over, Sugong.
No, I mean I just answered in text, so we can save time on that if needed. Now, the question is that somebody feeling very painful after getting separated from the partner. So according to the principle of mind only, his consciousness, there are some feeling caused by the seeds opening in the fridge, and also, and the fridge itself is a foundation consciousness. So how to explain, and then the difference between the sixth and the eighth consciousness, and how to use this idea to help the person. So this guy was clarifying that we would say that the sixth consciousness in our mind, basically that is our mind in general. And then using the mind only school, we will then talk about the eighth consciousness using refrigerator as the metaphor, which is a place where we keep all the seeds, and also a place where all the seeds will ripen. So as the person who was separated, they have to remember that the painful feeling should also come from their own seeds planted in the past by hurting others, and those are kept in the refrigerator, and they have to clear the bad seeds using various ways, including 4 powers, etc. Basically, those are just, yeah, simple answer.
Great, thank you.
Anything else you want to add?
I think like the only thing that I would say is that, you know, the mind only school thoughts about the sixth and eighth consciousness, I mean the seventh and eighth consciousnesses, isn't accepted by any other school, and isn't accepted by the 2 higher schools. And so like I would want to point you toward you know, how it is that, you know, how that projection works in terms of being a projection of name and term or mental image.
You're so good.
I don't know, like to me, this idea of a foundation consciousness, it just sounds so, and the way they hold it, it's just so real, right? It's this real thing that's holding real seeds. And you know, the higher middle way school would say, no, you know, there's not. And you don't need that real thing. And to me, it makes it much lighter, you know? The seeds are much lighter. If you think about that, every single thing is coming from what you've done in the past. That would be my thought.
Thank
But you know, but you also have to help someone with where they are in their worldview. So if they, you know, if they believe in a foundation consciousness, then yeah, perfect. Anything else?
I have a question for you, Bets. Can you hear me?
Tim.
It's kind of going off what you just said is, you know, if someone believes in certain aspects, like, you know, if they believe in the foundation consciousness or something like that, you know, you have to work with people where they are. The thing that I've thought a lot about is, you know, the own tendencies I have in my own mind to float between the various schools of emptiness, right? Like where, you know, maybe for one aspect of my life, I'm like, yes, this is coming from me. I totally get this all the time. But then, you know, there's something else in my life that you know, like I call my mom and everything she says is coming from her side, right? For example. I just can't.
Or the president of your country, you know, definitely.
Right, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the seeds I've thought about is what is the seed to be able to catch yourself in those various modes? Like, you know, okay, so most of the time, you know, at best, maybe I might be mind only, you know, in my thinking, right? Maybe, probably not even close. But, you know, what's the seed to be able to have that recognition, like to recognize, okay, I just had a thought, my mom, whatever she says to me, you know, oh, then I'm like, oh, there's something there that's self-existent. You know, like to have that awareness, to be able to, you know, it's like almost like interrupting the wheel at some point. Like and I've thought about it and I don't have an answer, but like to have it's almost like a recognition. Like, oh, I just had that thought. Oh, okay, what to do with that?
Yeah.
I'm wondering what your experience is in that practice.
Oh, well, like one practical thing that I did, and this is way back many, many years ago, when you know, well, I'd been studying for maybe four or 5 years or something. And I had a full-time job in you know, in an office that had nothing. It was nothing like my current job, which is like 100% Dharma. This was 100% high tech. And I had this good friend who is she's a fellow student. And we both could not leave our jobs when we wanted to do retreats and such. You know, you only get 2 weeks a year or something. And so she and I together created what we called a work retreat. And we would start the morning with motivation. You know, today, may I watch my mind and just notice what's occurring in my mind. And then we set times, frequencies, when we would stop and do this. And we each had different frequencies. I like to do it every hour and just stop and just look and say, okay, you know, what was that last thought, and you know, what was going on about it. And I found that to be incredibly beneficial to up my mindfulness throughout the rest of the day. You know, at the beginning, it was, first of all, it would be like, oh shoot, I missed that. I missed that check-in time, you know. So then I worked on developing a way to remind myself of what my check-in times were. And like the more you do anything, the more you incorporate it in your life. Chuni Lama, in the text that I'm translating, talks about this, and he says you have to study this and meditate on it every day. And you have to, I think it's really important to, you know, when we sit down to meditate, to not only have the big motivation about wanting to save all beings from suffering, but I think we should make also, in addition, shorter term goals. You know, today, may this meditation be a cause for me to recognize when the gotcha, when I'm holding on to a thing that could never exist. Because without making it a personal goal for ourselves, it's not just going to fall out of the sky. You know, we have to have the motivation and determination to do it, and we have to dedicate our practice for that, to make that kind of seed be powerful for us and ripen for us in a way that will allow us to see. There's one teacher, and I can't remember now if it was Kader J or Geltub J, or maybe it was Jason Kappa, said that walking down the street, probably Jason Kappa, walking down the street without thinking, oh, this sidewalk, where did it come from? Oh, that tree, where did it come from? That song of a bird, where did it come from? You know, that we should use all of our idle time asking this question of ourselves, where did that come from? You know, how am I seeing it? And where did it come from? So like we use our whole day-to-day experience as a way of applying our analysis that we did in meditation to our walking experience, like that. And then of course, you know, every night rejoicing the heck out of that.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think Gibson put a big question in the Q&A section.
Oh yeah?
There's a,
Oh, Gibson. Gibson says, in a lot of texts, some guys show up and say something wrong and spend time to discuss an idea which is wrong. And because we aren't familiar with the content, sometimes we may believe the discussion we have during the class is true. Haha, yeah. How shall we avoid this situation? That's a really good question. And each time we change to another class of translation, we need to move to another school of philosophy, and it can really confuse us. And how do we deal with that? So yeah, this is, especially in this particular collection of teachings, the Mixed Nuts Translation Program, it is the collection of all the different philosophical schools and their ideas. And as you say, it's complicated by the fact that each of our texts, maybe not Vinaya, but sort of in Vinaya too, we have, you know, opponents coming in and coming up with some crazy ideas. So there's, just again, I would think that what we need to, what we can do is to remember, okay, we're doing mixed text, and mixed text is higher middle way. And remembering that, okay, where we are in mixed text is that the opponents are coming in and trying to poke holes in the higher middle way. Or we're in words text, and like it was, at least for me, I had to remember when Geshe-la asked Word, what do we think? That what he meant by the word we is, what does the mind only think? Not what does we, the practitioners who are a member of the mixed nuts team who profess to be higher middle way, what do we think? No, that's not what he was asking. So we have to, we have to keep that really clear in our minds. So thinking about it from a karmic standpoint, I actually think this is really similar to something that I'm experiencing in the world right now, which is a lot of people professing conspiracy theories, or professing things that aren't backed up by science. Saying that all media is false. Like there's a lot of this sort of confusion in the world right now. Maybe that's just my experience, so it's more of a confession. So I have to think about, I have to make this like my karmic activity, if you will. Like if this is showing up for me, then okay, I want to create a world that is more clear and not confusing. So how can I be more clear? How can I help people who are confused? And I mean, these are obviously big seeds ripening for me right now, to have the whole world situation happening the way it is. So yeah, this is a major confession on my part. So, but just on a, I guess on a, I mean, we need to work on it karmically for sure, but just on a more practical level, to just remember, okay, first make a list. Okay, what are all the schools of philosophy for each of the different texts, right? And then think about, is what is being discussed right now, is that from this philosophical school's point of view or not? So to just like make that part of your watching habit, to not just take everything as, just, yeah, to make it clear for yourself. I don't know if that helps, Gibson. But I hope so, because I want to create the seeds for things to be clear. I don't know if you heard me, Gibson, but. Okay, good. He says more clear for me. Okay, good. Junie asks, is this Junie from Shenzhen? She asks, is it possible for a normal person to plant the seed which can ripen again and again until the day I become a Buddha? If so, how deep of an understanding of emptiness do we have to reach to get that done? So yes, this is Junie from Shenzhen. Hi. She translated for me when I did a Q&A session for the ACI Long Room Retreat. It's wonderful to see her. I haven't seen her in a while. Anyway, so yes, it is possible for a normal person, normal being, I think you mean someone who has not yet seen emptiness directly, to plant a seed which can ripen again and again until the day you become a Buddha. So the way you do that is, at least the way I've been taught, is that you make your motivation as big as you possibly can. You know, may I'll just use an example. So may my answering your question resolve all doubt in the minds of every being on this planet, on any planet, in all times, and may it allow them to see emptiness directly and to reach the state of being fully enlightened. So you make it as big as possible, your motivation, because that's the ground in which you're planting your seed. If you plant a seed to, oh, may I answer Junie's question, then, you know, maybe it will just answer Junie's question. But if I make my motivation to resolve all doubt in the minds of all beings everywhere, then that seed is, I mean, that's my intention for this action. And if I do the other things, which is, you know, rejoice about having planted the seed and also water and fertilize it, right? Do the things that will help it to be conducive for it ripening in that way. Continue to study, continue to deepen my understanding about emptiness, continue to deepen my understanding about, you know, what is bodhicitta? How can I have that ripen in my mind spontaneously, constantly? Continue meditating on both bodhicitta and emptiness. Doing all the things that will support that seed ripening in that way, then yeah, that's the way it's going to go. So you don't, I mean, if we could only plant that kind of seed once we had seen emptiness, then we'd all be in a world of trouble, right? How could we really ever get there? We have to have big motivation for the things we do so that we can progress along the path, so we can get there. Great question. So Isabel Xiao says, can I understand in this way? Illusion is everything created by, illusion. Everything created by seeds are illusion. When I understand the yelling husband is created by my past deeds, which is how I treat others, the gotcha. When I understand the yelling husband doesn't come from my past deeds of past treatment of others, then at this moment the illusion is emptied, and this moment something, it is the gotcha. So in a general sense, a thing that is an illusion is something that appears to us to be in a way that is different than the way it exists. So for the husband in the kitchen, the one who yells at us could be either husband, right? The husband who yells at us because I didn't do anything at all, that's the illusory husband. That husband does not exist. The husband who yells at me because I recognize that I have acted in anger towards other people, and he is just a mirror for me of my own past actions and nothing more than that. Then yeah, the illusory husband has disappeared. Oh, that was from Candy Lay. So I hope, did I address that properly? So to an ordinary person, let me just say, to an ordinary person, to a person who is not in the direct perception of emptiness, any appearance has a discrepancy, and that discrepancy is the way it appears to exist is not the way it exists. To a person in the direct perception of emptiness, there is no illusion. So for an Arya, they are seeing emptiness only. To a Buddha, they are seeing both appearance and emptiness simultaneously. So it's an illusion to them, but they are also in the same moment cognizing its lack of a self nature. Any more? No, everyone's sleepy? I have to write my quiz so you can do my quiz.
I think you have answered all, looks like. And it's close to the hour.
It is. We started a little late, but
Oh, I see. Okay.
if no one has questions, then there we go.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, sure.
It's
I
my
wish
turn
I
tomorrow.
wish
I'm
I knew
getting-
more. Oh no, there's a question about the 4 powers.
Ah,
Let's see if we can answer that one. Claudia, you have a question about the 4 powers? Okay, she's writing about it. So we can think about our motivation. Listening to this question will help us understand the true nature of reality, which is that nothing has any existence from its own side, that it's all coming from me, that it's just a name and a mental image ripening out of seeds that I've planted from how I've been in the past. And no matter the answer will resolve all doubt, and we will all become enlightened, and we will lead all others to enlightenment. Okay, here we go, the question. In your text, could you please explain a bit? A bad thought also part of the Buddha? Oh, so, so in my text today, there was, there is this like group of wrong meditations about emptiness, or incorrect ideas about what it means to see emptiness directly. And one of them was about any old tokpa, RTOG without the S, which is just some idea. Just some idea. It's not a realization. It's just some idea. That those ideas are thoughts of the Buddha, and just let them go. Or to think them is not a problem. So that's not seeing emptiness directly. So, but your question is, it's a bad thought also part of a Buddha? And that would, for that question, I'd have to say, ask your Tantric Lama. Well, that was Isabel's question. So now Claudia's question. How can I make my 4 powers in a way that it cannot be attached to my past actions? Because maybe it's a seed that I've been planting for a long time, but the people around me are showing me that seed that I don't like. And what is the practice to make it flow into a positive way to really practice? Claudia, I'm not understanding the first part about making your 4 powers in a way that cannot be attached to your past actions. But, to feel guilty. Guilt is not one of the 4 powers. So the regret, which is one of the 4 powers, that is a very clear-headed, almost clinical way of looking at the action that we did to plant the seed. So using the kids, I yelled at the kids. If we go into this, oh, I yelled at the kids. Oh, I'm such a bad mother. Oh, and now I'm a bad wife because I yelled at my husband. And now he's gonna yell at me and I'll yell at my kids. Oh, that guilt, it doesn't help us in any way whatsoever. And it's like it's buying into a story. It's buying into the story that there's this real me and these real kids, and there's this real yelling going on and this real harm going on. It's like it's reifying everything. It's making everything more solid and substantial. But if we have regret, that's a very clinical way of looking and saying, I'm being yelled at. This doesn't feel good. And this came from me yelling at the kids. If I yell back right now, I'm going to create more experiences of being yelled at. It's like scientific, clinical look. The fact is, we're here in the realm of suffering. We're in the wheel of pain. And we are gonna feel suffering. That's, part of the whole thing. And it all comes from us. And to feel bad about that just won't help us get out. It really won't. And for me, like I was a clinically depressed person right before I came to Buddhism, and Buddhism saved my life, quite literally saved my life. I was going to kill myself. And understanding about bodhicitta, about karma, and about emptiness, which I received I went to a Lamrim retreat on a whim. And the moment I heard those teachings, it completely dispelled that. It was just so clear to me that everything I do is the cause of everything I experience. And coupling that with the idea of bodhicitta, bodhisattvas, those beings who exist solely for the purpose of helping people get out of suffering, like what better kind of being to be than that, you know? So having that motivation, having that desire, the burning desire to see that no one suffers any longer, and to know that I can make that possible because all I experience comes from what I do now. It's like, okay, that's my path. That's what I want for me, for everybody. And so what's keeping me there? Things I've done in the past. Okay, so that stuff I've done in the past, it's over, it's done. There are seeds there. I got to think about them. I got to think about what I did to make them happen. And I have to think about what can I do that will counteract those seeds. You know, if I've yelled at people, oh, how can I be more sweet in my speech to other people? If I experience poverty, which I have many times in my life, how can I be more generous? So that all people have affluence, you know, that there be no more poverty in anyone's experience. So I think the more you think about this and how those three things work together, bodhicitta, karma, and emptiness, that those three together are, it's like all we need, you know. With those three together, we can get the heck out of this wheel of pain and get everybody out of this wheel of pain. And the practice of it is, it's an experiment, you know. We get to try things out. How does this work when I do this? Or, oh, I'm having these kind of negative thoughts. What might work to counteract that? You know, how can I approach things differently? Like that. I hope that's helpful. Oh, good. Good. Okay. Any more?
But it's after time if you want to take a rest.
Oh, I gotta write. My boss is gonna be yelling at me if I don't write my quiz.
Hey, I need that quiz. Let's have it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for listening to everyone's questions and my attempts to answer. And may you have a very sweet evening. May you rest in the Buddha's lap. May we see you bright and early tomorrow, thinking clearly about what school is on, talking in what text, and remembering you're doing this to help everybody. So thanks.
Thank you, Bets.
Thank you. Good night.
Your
Enjoy.
answers are amazing and you're brilliant, and we're super lucky to have you on the team. So thank you for being a great teacher, being a great translator.
Oh, thanks, Nick.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, good night, Amelie. Sweetie pie. 5 a.m. in the Netherlands. Oh my gosh, you got up early, Carl.
I like that guy's determination.
No kidding. So that means you were up at like 2 in the morning earlier. Oh my gosh.
It's worth it.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm so happy. I rejoice. Oh, it's your husband, Carl.
Ah, okay, Carl's wife. What,
Carl's wife.
let's have your
Good
name.
morning from Hong Kong. Hello, Hong Kong.
I'm just.
Oh, it's Marina. There, I see your name.
Cool. Good to know. All right. Oh, I got something you guys can rejoice about.
Yeah?
We just got our PPP loan document signed. Village Yoga is going to survive, I hope. We don't know, you know.
Yay.
Nothing's closed yet, but it looks like something good is happening. So that's
Oh,
amazing.
good.
I think.
Well, when I drove by today, I saw the sign and I was like, yay, I can see it from the street. It's very obvious. I'm so happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
So hopefully people can soon go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, it's we're doing outdoor classes right now.
Oh,
Yeah, at social
where?
distance. Like we'll come by and check it out, but like outside the doors, there's like a
Oh,
overhang, and there's kind of like a little patio, I guess you could say.
okay, right there. Cool.
We can fit like, I don't know, 10 to 12 people doing outdoor yoga.
And people come.
Yeah, for sure.
Yay, great, 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 great.
We just keep distance and we're super safe about it. And
Excellent.
yeah, it's exciting. So we did, I mean, fingers are still crossed. We're still waiting for the closing to happen. You know, but I think somehow I think today like we made a little offering to our main sponsor, and I think that helped to come full circle on some seed that needed to, I don't know, who knows. Anyway,
May it be so.
yeah, we can. Cool.
Hey guys, I'm gonna write my quiz, so I'm checking out.
Bye.
Love you all.
Ciao.
Good night.
Yep. Ben said. Okay.